Hello and welcome back. Another episode of Conversation in Artificial Intelligence. This is Paolo, your host, and it is an honor privilege to have you here. Today, we depart a little bit from artificial intelligence. We go into the world of innovation, and we're going to talk about interesting and very intriguing topics. So we're going to go anywhere from how to design and evaluate a new product to what it takes to launch, and also how organizations have to be shaped in order to successfully launch new products. And we will try to look at these concepts within the framework of artificial intelligence products. So today we will also introduce the author of this very exciting book, Lay an Egg and Make Chicken Soup. He has been an innovator for a long time, and today is a world consultant and advisor for innovation projects in large corporates and in startups. Hello, Arie. How are you today?
Good morning. Good. How are you?
I am very, very, very good. Can you tell our audience where you're based these days?
Thanks for having me. First of all, currently I'm based in Austin, Texas. And by the way, Inc. magazine listed Austin as the #1 place to start business in the USA.
Okay, very good. We should move then to Austin, start up new businesses. Do something non traditional. Let's suppose that we go back to the times that, you were a student back in Israel, comes from Israel, and you have to tell them what you've been doing in the United States. What would you tell them?
I started my career, as you said, in Israel, and all my career I worked for American companies in Israel. So my first job out of school was with a national semiconductor, and that was pretty innovative at the time in Israel to go and work for a foreign company. People thought at the time that I'm crazy, but I think that started a long, successful career over the years doing business between Israel and the United States, transition back and forth in different assignments. And we have been here now for the past 30 years. That's the last time we came over.
What exactly have you been doing during these 30 years? And how have you transitioned from more operational role to an advisor consulting role?
The important lesson, although the first job was an R&D engineering job, but later, after a few years, they relocated me to the Silicon Valley to help in commercializing of the product we designed. At the time, it was the most innovative microprocessor that was available in the market, 2 or 3 years ahead of Intel, 2 or 3 years ahead of Motorola from technology point of view. However, it did not succeed very well because the commercialization part of the life phases did not do very well, although the product itself was extremely ahead of its time. So that's lesson number 1. It's more than just having a good product. You need to execute on all the details later on after you finish the design of the product.
You have written this book. What did inspire you to write such a complex, articulated books where basically all the pieces of innovations are covered?
Over the years, and especially in the past 10, 15 years, I was involved more in the commercialization phase of the new products in different technologies and different industries. And one thing I realized mentoring many entrepreneurs and many new companies and also in large companies is that in many cases people don't realize how many blind spots they have in the process of introducing a new product to the market. So I started to blog and give examples of success stories and failures and lesson learned from different new product mentorship years. And slowly it came together, and I said, one day I woke up and said, if I put everything together, it will be a good book. So that's how it started gradually. I started to write different blogs, and after a few months, I realized I can put it together and make it a book.
If I'm not wrong, the book is the bestseller in the innovation space right now on Amazon. How does that feel like for you?
Frankly, it was a total surprise. I didn't expect it to succeed. If you look at most books about innovations and startups, I talk about how to raise money for the startup, but most of the books fail to talk about the execution. In my case, I took a different approach. I dedicated a chapter for each part of the life cycle of a new product And yeah, fundraising is one important part of it. So I have a chapter about fundraising. I have a chapter about how to come up with new ideas and so on and so forth. I have one chapter per execution or per commercialization discipline. So, manufacturing, marketing, sales, intellectual property, board of directors, all the phases and all the disciplines and organizational disciplines. By the way, one chapter about HR and organizational and human factors in innovations.
What is your favorite chapter?
I have few that I'm not sure if they are favorite because of the chapter, but because I know that in many cases people miss those points. So one important thing to pay attention to is the learning curve of any new thing you do, whether it's a new restaurant or a new application on a smartphone. There is a learning curve that people have to pay attention. And traditionally, when people talk about learning curve, they're talking about the cost of making the product. But there is also cost in case of services. There is cost of making mistakes or miss service. If you are a new hotel and you don't serve your initial clients first, the word will go out and people will not book your hotel. Or if you are a restaurant or if you are whatever you do. So the learning curve is not just about the cost, but overall efficiency of the business, making customers happy with your products and service.
Personally, I find lots of these chapters very interesting because they kind of holistically cover a lot of areas around product development and new product design. I like to take a look at some of these concepts in the view of some of the machine learning products that are out there. And one thing that has intrigued me is that we have lots of platforms today. So there is this idea of APIs as service, and we have at least 10 large companies providing this sort of platform APIs. And at the same time, we have like dozens of startups that are coming with specific vertical solutions sometimes, but they miss the breadth of the large companies that provide this one-shop-fit-all kind of solution where you go and they give you everything from infrastructure to machine learning algorithms to the ability to run those machine learning algorithms. Yet there are really, really many startups trying to enter this space, and it's a space of providing basically intelligence computational power. So they rent the algorithms. So how would you generally think if you were an investor, or let's say somebody that has to evaluate these various startups that are coming up with the next APIs, how would you think in terms of their potential odds for success in the market, where there are so many large giants like Amazon, Google, IBM, and Microsoft and the likes?
First of all, the pros and cons of innovating in a small company versus innovation in a large company. The big difference is decision making. In a large company, normally it takes longer to decide to take upon a new project in any field, artificial intelligence included. A small company makes a decision much faster. The advantage of a large company, once the decision is made, you have all the funding required immediately to execute on the project very quickly and very efficiently. Disadvantage in a startup environment is that you continuously have to raise funding to continue the development and continue the commercialization of the new product. These are the advantages and disadvantages of doing innovation in a large company versus doing innovation in a startup environment. You started your question about investors. The most important thing for an investor to look at is what vertical and what business problem this particular proposal is addressing. In some cases, I've seen investors that are being dragged into what's fashionable. So today, artificial intelligence is fashionable or crypto or Internet of Things. Try to avoid chasing the fashion and look at the real business problem that the particular proposal is addressing. In many cases, it will have an artificial intelligence component, but the artificial intelligence is the tool to solve a business problem and not the goal of its own.
What we are seeing in some of the spaces of machine learning is a population of startups that are providing just algorithms. They rent algorithms. And not necessarily they are providing like a hand-to-hand solution with some form of deep productization. So what they're providing is platform for the algorithm. How do you evaluate that some of these startups could be successful, some might not, because as I said, even if they have a new type of algorithm, companies in the end might not go and use it because they just want to have one single entry point for all these algorithms. They don't want to have one contract from one company, one contract from another company. So for example, here in conversational artificial intelligence, we had startups that were doing computer vision, and particularly they were doing tagging of objects in a very advanced way. But that's the business proposition, tagging objects, telling you what's happening in a video. So they're trying to sell their service. And we have also had startups that instead are looking at creating products around image recognition, but for specific verticals, like for example, for the hotel verticals, where they create programs where they can recognize guests and give these guests certain services rather than other services, but they do not have to queue or anything. So basically, you see, one is a platform approach where you're trying to serve this technology to other potential technology actors, technology departments inside the non-technological company first. And in the second case, instead, you have a completed productization of the technology. So the technology becomes a piece and they're trying to solve a business problem. So there is a need for both of them. But how would you go about like thinking what makes successful a product? Is it doing, a vertical like the second one, and the product instead is trying to do an infrastructure where there are so many other infrastructures around?
The question is, how do you approach the ecosystem to make sure that people need what you're doing? So in the case of doing a generic platform, you need to make yourself a list of what applications and what verticals can use this platform and go and talk to potential users from the different verticals, make sure that they want what you do, they like what you do, and eventually they can advise you and guide you in the development and the definition of this platform. And by the way, the good thing about talking early on before you start the development of the product, you talk to the different players in the ecosystem to get inputs for the specification of the new product. But by doing that, you get a buy-in into this project, and it's very likely that the same people will be your customers 2 years later after you finish the development. So there is nothing wrong about doing a platform as long as you do it in conjunction with real customers that can use this platform for real applications. The other approach, what you said, you have an end product in mind, let's say a computer vision for security purpose, and then you go and shop for the platforms that you need. So it's kind of an ecosystem. One of the chapters in my book is people talk about business development, but in many cases, they perceive business development as acquire early adopters to the product. In my mind, business development is much more than that. It's more about ecosystem development or ecosystem management. Make sure that all the players in the ecosystem in sync with what you are trying to do.
How would you define an ecosystem, and how is it important in the process of innovation?
There is a chart in my book that shows 20 or 30 potential parts of the ecosystem. An ecosystem, obviously, one part is customers, one part is your suppliers, one part is your competition, and it's very important part of the ecosystem is the competition. Government, some industries require government's approval or government certification, or if it's not the government certification, there is certification bodies or test houses that certify the product that you are doing. You have to make sure that the product is compatible with synergistic products that have to work together in the real world. Universities, you want university professors in the same discipline to agree with what you do and endorse what you do. It's important from a marketing point of view. It's also important from acquiring these professors or academic knowledge and whatever research was done in this field before in the academia. So there is lots of components that you want to agree with what you do. So they help you eventually in different ways. They help you make this product a success in the market.
In your career, as you said, you faced the situation where a good product didn't succeed. Can we analyze why? Can we, all these startups in the artificial intelligence world, view of what happened in the past? What are the learnings from other industries as well?
One of the things I do in the book, I took examples from different industries because what I learned throughout my career is you can learn from different industries even if you're different. So if you are an automotive manufacturers, you can learn from airline, or you can learn from health and medical, and you can learn from each other different customer acquisition techniques, different quality mistakes that your people may do during the launch of the new products. So the same thing with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is not an island that starts from scratch. You learn from other technology products that were launched 2 years ago or 10 years ago or 20 years ago. One of the approaches I took in my book, by the way, is taking all the examples that you can see what worked and did not work, that you can learn from, even if it happened 200 years ago. One of the examples I'm using is the Gutenberg printing machine or the invention of the telephone. You can learn from these examples today, even if you're in a different technology, different industry, or artificial intelligence or whatever. It's kind of generically, you see the similar obstacles and similar challenges in the market, getting the ecosystem, adjust the product, adapt the product. That's one important thing in any industry. Whether you're automotive, you want to have road, you're in airlines, you want to have airports. It's all connected together.
At the same time, for startups or, also for large companies, when you are living day-to-day routine, there's so many things happening in your day-to-day routine that it's really difficult to go and look at what things happen in other industries, what were the problems and there, because the everyday routine, it kind of take you into looking at tactical problems and things of this sort. You mentioned that you were working on a chip that was far superior than Intel and Motorola at the time. And you said that what actually failed was the go-to-market, the adoption plan of it. Could you talk about that?
So at the time, it was the most innovative microprocessor in the market that we developed. But going back to the ecosystem, one thing that we did not prepare the market very well was the market was not ready to take such an innovative microprocessor. And actually, Intel came with a less innovative microprocessor that was accepted and was very popular because maybe our product was too innovative for the market at the time. So this is one thing that people have to think about when coming out with a new product. Don't try to shoot too far ahead. Serve the market that can accept your new product in the next year or two, and then you can upgrade to better technologies. The other challenge we had was in the manufacturability and testing of the product. The product was so complex that just to manufacture it in a cost-effective manner and test it and make sure we don't deliver to the market products that were not tested enough. And that's another lesson learned, that in any product must be tested and go through different qualifications, whether you're talking about a food product or a medical product, testing that needs to go on before you ship to the market. If the product is complex, you cannot test its functionality a good way, and you end up delivering products with defects. That goes back, by the way, to the discussion about learning curve. Whenever you innovate, you have to take into account that the first number of products always more expensive to make and more expensive to support the customers, and make sure you ship good products without defects. And that adds to the cost of the operation that sometimes people know when they make the budget for the new product. So this always have to take into account in the budget that the operation overall is not as efficient as the first 200 products or first 2,000 products as it's supposed to be longer term when you ship 100,000 products or 1 million customers.
I would like to go one step forward and look at all the elements of, if you like, an innovation introduction to the markets. Like, what are the factors that make an innovation successful in the marketplace? Thinking about, the marketing, the sales part, the ecosystem, the champions. In your findings in all these many years of working on different type of product development in different companies. What are the factors that matter once you have the product for it to be successful in the marketplace?
We talked about the ecosystem. That's something you have to do during the development to make sure that once the product is out and available in the market, the whole ecosystem is there to support it. So that's rule number one. Another thing you mentioned, the sales effort. There is one common problem I saw in many new products in different industries. Salespeople, in many cases, their compensation is based on commission of what they sold. So if you have to sell a mature product that you get purchase orders once a month with very little time and effort invested in you, that's one type of product. If you have to go and spend hours over hours educating the customer why this other new product is and so good, but then at the beginning of the life cycle you sell only a few samples and your commission is minimal, and when you view the small amount of products you sold versus the number of hours you spent on training the customer, educating the customer about this new product, most salespeople in every industry I was involved gravitate and prioritize commission per hour, so to speak. So they tend to gravitate towards selling mature products because that's where they make most of the commission for minimum amount of time spent. So any new product introduction, the sales compensation plan needs to take into account that human phenomena and plan some additional motivations for the salespeople to spend more time on the new products. And in the book, I have different ideas on how to make it happen or how to upgrade or additional motivation tools to the salespeople so they can to spend more time on promoting a new product.
For us, that we talk so much on artificial intelligence on this channel, and typically we deal with startups that are trying to bring a new product to the market, or we're dealing with managers inside companies that have the foresight of creating a new project, but then they always face two types of problems, which is how do I take my project from the lab or from a small scale to a larger scale, and I get other departments to adopt it. I get my sales force to adopt hundreds or thousands of these people inside the company adopt the new innovations that I'm working on. So this part is very relevant to what we do. Mm-hmm. So what specific elements would you go after to motivate more the agents, the sellers of your products / your process?
First of all, something we talked about at the beginning of this conversation, when the salesperson goes and sells a new security camera or a new feature on your automobile, the selling point could be there is an artificial intelligence in this vehicle, but the most important is what feature did you add? Let's say you're talking about self-driving cars. For full self-driving cars, you talk about some safety features that you add to the car based on artificial intelligence. So the selling point is, okay, I have this feature in your car that will stop if there is some emergency situation, the car will stop itself. The fact that they do it with artificial intelligence technology could add, or some customers don't care how you do it, all they care about what is the feature that you're trying to sell them. Some customers, by the way, will gravitate towards the innovation part, the fact that there is artificial intelligence in their vehicle that will be a motivator by itself. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I did a market research for a new golf gadget that's supposed to improve your golf game. And we did a market research. We interviewed dozens of golf players at different levels. In most cases, the answer was, I'm not good enough to take advantage of this gadget, but I'll buy it anyhow because it's a talking piece between me and my other golf buddies. So sometimes people buy not for the functionality in the product, but the fact that it gives them some kind of talking piece or satisfaction that they are up in the stretching the envelope of what they're doing, whether it's a hobby or car. Another similar example, we had automotive customer back in the days when we started to introduce advanced microprocessors into automobile engine control. First, automobile company that adopted a 32-bit microprocessor into their engine control. Their marketing advertisement was the most innovative technology in an automobile that you can buy. They didn't tell the customers, okay, what does it give you as a driver? They just worked on the emotional aspect of people can go and tell their friends that they have the most advanced technological vehicle that you can buy today. So this is another example. You can play that when you sell artificial intelligence-based products, but you also have to pay attention to what business solution or life problem this gadget or this tool is trying to solve.
I think another area that is also relevant to launching new products in addition to the sales, which is the oxygen of any business, is if we instead look at, rather than startups, we look at more established companies. There are lots of both R&D managers and innovation managers that today are trying to bring their ideas, their projects. They have identified potential opportunities to leverage artificial intelligence, improving a process or a product in a large company. But then the other important aspect is how an organization is shaped and what it takes from viewpoint of learning on creating these projects. So I'd like you to comment a little bit about how different organizations type can help the process of innovation or can hamper the process of innovation, and where does the learning curve play a role in innovating maybe in a process inside an organization.
One of the issues you find very often in large companies before about it takes time to approve a new product. One of the issues in many cases is the fear of cannibalism. You always have that fear of this new product will reduce my sales of a previous generation. And I've seen it very often happening. Anytime there is a product proposal, they're looking at, okay, what's this new product will do to my sales of the previous generation of products in this family. This debate can go on for months in some companies. And it's very important that management will be aware of that and design the phase over between the old product and the new product in a way that will add value to the company instead of subtract value from the company. And in some cases, I've seen that the new product business unit competes with the old product business unit. So if it's different business units, the old product business units will, for example, reduce their price to keep customers using the old product. They will demotivate the market to adopt a new product. So we talked about sales tools and sales incentive plan. So a large company needs to pay attention to balance between the incentives to old products and the new products and plan the phase over in a way that will add value. And I do talk about it in the book. I called it cannibalism, and cannibalism can be destructive if the revenue from the old products plus the revenue from the new product is lower than it was before you introduced the new product, just because the old product reduced the prices too much before the new product gain momentum. So that could happen. What you want is to plan the phase over in a way that the reduction in the old product, or let's say the upside that's coming from the new product, will be more than the reduction from the old product. And that's a very fine line that you need to manage between the two generations.
In this interview, we have time limit and we kind of conclusion of what we were talking about. But if you had to give one single advice to a startup founder in machine learning, in one of these machine learning startups, summarizing all what we have discussed, what would be your most valuable advice for them to be successful?
The punchline of our conversation, I think, is make sure you thought about all the challenges and obstacles in the introduction of your new idea. So go through the list of the chapters and make sure you thought about each one of them in your business plan, and you save yourself. I'm not trying to notes in my book, but at least if you look at use my outline as kind of a checklist of what you need to pay attention to, and make sure you do pay attention to each one of the chapters in the list.
If you have questions, about this specific interview, please comment on the space below. If you watch this on YouTube, if you watch it somewhere else on LinkedIn or other venues, please comment them appropriately. If you have particular, requests for additional content in this direction or others, please let me know. For the time being, Arie, thank you so much. This is so interesting, and also looking at the process of innovation from different perspective, and also different industries, not being just focused around the artificial intelligence, but seeing how other industries face similar problems and learning from these other industries. And once more, I remind our audience that I would brought a book that is right now bestseller on Amazon, and it's a book about innovation. If it's interesting for you, if this topic is of interest, please have a look. And Arie, thank you so much. This was great.
Thank you, Paolo. Bye-bye.